Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 38 of the Purple Hyacinth on the Story Teacher podcast. We are here with Firedancer, Bundin, and Fwoot.
Hello.
Hello.
And we are super excited to do this episode. It has been a long time coming. We may have had to reschedule this like 3 times, but we are here. All right. Yeah. So we open up with the morning light streaming into the window, a beautiful domestic scene, which we hope will be replicated many, many times in the future, of Lauren waking up in Kieran's bed. Only next time.
Lauren waking up alone.
Why do you want her to be alone?
Right. No, Kieran has to be there with her.
Nah, there has to be a set of blue eyes behind her.
Not just
She's
any
in
blue
a
eyes.
single bed. She needs to be literally on top of him to be like in the same bed.
I'm
The
regretting.
closer, the better.
Oh my god, we're like a minute into this, and I already regret signing up for this episode. Oh my
Fwoot,
god,
You knew what you were getting into. Fwoot.
You knew.
I should have taken episode 90. Oh my god, 37 as a warning. I should have taken 20
You
as
had-
a warning.
you had-
I should
Honestly, you
have
should have
recorded my
taken 20.
reactions in this episode like I did for episode 20.
Yeah, you could have quit, Fwoot. It's all on you.
You could've.
You take
We
responsibility
had to
for your
reschedule this so
choices.
many times. now.
Honestly, you had so many outs.
So many missed opportunities.
Mhm.
So anyway, we have this beautiful scene, Lauren waking up. Well, first her eyes are closed and she is looking so at peace because we all know this is the most sleep she's ever gotten. She had a beautiful, restful night in Kieran's bed. It's the magic bed. She could only sleep in that bed. And she wakes up and she's a bit confused she's like, looks around and she sees that she is in a room filled with books. Delightful. I love books. And as soon as I saw this room, I was like, I am so much more in love with Kieran now because I love books. Anyone who reads books goes up like 10 points, 100 points in my eyes.
Same.
My husband walks around with a book all the time. Like, he has observe giant stack of books from him. That is
Oh.
like just his current reading, which isn't even supposed to be upstairs, but whatever.
That's
See,
nice.
he is a man of culture.
You want to hear the titles?
Sure.
Why not? Let's totally interrupt this thing. Okay, so this is actually the only fiction he reads.
Oh.
Brian Sanderson. My brother forced him to read it because my husband does not read fiction. It's probably the second fiction book he read in his life. He read The Chosen and he is now making himself read Lord of the Rings and he's reading this. Then The God of Old Inside the Lost World of the Bible, probably biblical. Yeah, James Cogold's Biblical Criticism. And we have Philosophical Foundations for a Christian Worldview. We're Jewish, but my husband reads a lot of Christian philosophers because he's a philosopher. Natural Theology, which is all about discovering God through the natural world. Norman Geisler, Systematic Theology.
Really into
One
theology and stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
He is kind of like a super genius. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, in that one topic. He also can't like do basic things, but he's a super genius. So he has all that.
And that's usually how it goes.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Anyway, sorry guys. Now we'll go back to the other book lover. Lauren wakes up and she was like, huh? And then she sits straight up in bed with this confused look on her face.
Nani?
Yeah, because she's like, oh, where am I? And what am I doing? We're in Kieran's shirt, in Kieran's bed, in Kieran's house. And she thinks to herself, oh my God, I'm still at Kieran's place.
The look of just complete like shock and like dread.
No, the
Yeah.
fact that she slept in and did not wake up at the crack of dawn.
I mean, it is pretty early still. The alarm
Yeah.
clock says.
Yeah, hold up, wait.
The
There
alarm
is a clock.
yet? Don't we see the clock at some point? I'm pretty sure they
Yeah.
show the
Yeah, I
clock.
think it's a
like
little
6
further
or
down.
5.
Oh yeah, because
6 or
we
5-ish.
crossed
Yeah,
the title
6
and
or
we can
4.
hear the ticking
Yeah,
of the
6
clock and
o'clock.
stuff. Yeah.
6
But
o'clock.
I don't
yeah.
know if we can always trust the clocks because the clock in the office often says like 5 o'clock and like
Mhm.
and when they're coming in the morning and it's like, y'all are not coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning to the APT.
Well, I mean, this one I remember it actually works because like if,
Yeah.
like just past the title and stuff, the first thing we see is the clock and it's about like 4 or 5 minutes past
Oh, okay.
6.
Yeah.
And
Never
then
mind.
later on
There
in the
is still a
chapter, it's
grip.
maybe 10 minutes.
That one is
past.
a
So
Right.
that's like
No,
one of the
that
things
one
I
is
remember
reliable.
being like, oh, because they directly draw attention to the clock. So I guess they knew they had to make it accurate, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yes, true. And he has a cute alarm clock too. I like Kieran's taste. All the more reason, you know, for us to like him.
Mhm.
People with good aesthetic sensibilities are always good and moral, and you know, the connection.
Get you a man's that has immaculate interior decorating skills.
Mhm. So Lorraine gets up and starts taking a look around the room, and she sees, you know, there's like a brick wall and a bookshelf and another bookshelf, and there's, you know, books on the table and there's books on the chair, and you know, she walks over to the books on the chair and she picks them up, and she sees The Man Who Laughs by Ed Brubaker and The Killing Joke by Alan Moore. So guys, I think this is the beginning of our introduction of the books that we see in Kieran's house. So I took up with these books in the library, and I had them in my house for literally months and they kept renewing them for me, and they didn't charge me. I finally returned them last week, but because I wanted to see what was in them. So have you guys read them?
I haven't
Yeah,
read
no.
The Killing Joke, but I'm very familiar with the plot and what goes on in it. It's a very famous Batman comic. And it's
Yeah.
got the famous thing with the Joker taking the picture on the cover. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah. So when I saw this and I heard this was like the parallels, because he already made a Joker parallel in episode like 19 where he's like, have you danced with the devil in the pale moonlight? That's like a thing from like the 1989 Batman. I like Batman. So yeah, but The Man Who Laughs I know is also like a Joker reference too.
Mhm.
So
So,
Yeah.
do any of you want to take on explaining the plot of these books, or do you want me to do it? Because
you can
You
do
should,
it, it's fine.
yeah, you should probably do it
You
because
got the
I
books, so you
yeah,
know, like better
you
and
read
fresher.
them. You read them because like I haven't read them. I haven't read the books, but I read like the synopsis and like the whole plot overview, so like I know a bit about it.
There's also a movie for The Killing Joke, but don't watch it. It's not very good. They added dumb stuff to the beginning to pad it. So just like cut the first third out and just gets this up with like Batman. That's the only good bit.
so when I read The Killing Joke, and it was literally the first Batman comic I ever read, and I was like freaked out. I had to close the book several times as I was reading it because I was like, this is so freaky. So yeah, I'm not watching it. But here's the basic plot. Basically, we see it's the Joker's origin story, and it tells us that he was working at this factory, but he decided to quit to become a comedian, and he was a failed comedian. People apparently didn't find him funny, and you see him talking with his wife, and he is miserable, and he, you know, feels bad about himself. He's like, nobody laughs at my jokes, and everyone, you know, just they don't find me funny, and like now I don't have enough money. And his wife who's pregnant, tries to comfort him. She's like, oh, don't worry, but she basically tells him, you're good in the sack, so that's okay. I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't think that's the most comforting thing, but okay. And so, you know, he's a man who at this point doesn't feel very good about himself. He quit his job to like do something that didn't work out, and he decides to turn to crime to get some money. And he goes to these men who tell him, hey, we just need you worked in that factory, so you know how to get to the factory next door, and that's what we need. Put on this red hood. You know, we have this Red Hood character, and you know, every time it's someone else, you just put this red hood on, lead us to, you know, the security code, whatever, lead us past your first factory to this other chemical factory, and you know, we'll pay you. And he's like, are you sure? Fine. Yeah, okay. He's gonna do it because he wants the money. And then what ends up happening is his wife dies in like a freak accident, and the guys tell him, like the hoodlums, he's like, oh, well, I guess I'm not doing it anymore because I don't need the money anymore. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you said you would do it, you have to do it or we'll kill you, basically. And he was like, oh, okay, fine. And he goes that night, and he's still in shock and grief over his like wife who just died. And he goes in, and their mission turns out to be unsuccessful. Like, the lock has changed, and the police pursue them, and he ends up falling into this vat of chemicals. And when he comes out, he emerges as the Joker. His face is disfigured, and now he's the Joker. So that's the backstory that is in The Killing Joke. And when it ends up the present time, you know, the backstory is kind of interspersed with what's happening in the present time. And what's happening in the present time is that the Joker has been, he's kind of been, somebody else was switched for him in the prison, and he's out of the prison. And then Batman, when he goes to visit him in prison, realizes it's not the actual Joker, and now he has to find the Joker. The Joker starts doing his reign of terror in the city. One of the things he does is okay, this is actually in The Man Who Laughs. So, but anyway, so in The Killing Joke, what he does is he buys this abandoned circus, and he you know, it's run down and it's not safe. And the guy who sells it to him is like, are you sure you want to buy it? Like, you'll need a lot of renovations before it's like, you know, habitable. And he's like, it's just perfect, right? He's all into like the danger, the broken rides, and it's like really creepy. And he hires this motley crew of circus freaks, basically. They seem to be not just like physically deformed, but also like morally deformed. They're not very nice people, it seems. And what he ends up doing is he barges into the Inspector Gordon's house. And Inspector Gordon is already an older man at this point. And he's sitting there with his album of basically like all the news articles about the Joker and Batman that he's gathered over the years, all their stories and escapades. And he's looking through it with his daughter, Barbara, when somebody comes in, kidnaps Inspector Gordon, and it's really very quite gruesome. They shoot Barbara. Barbara's lying there on the floor, like on the glass shattered coffee table, like lying on shards of grass in pain and like clutching her abdomen where she's been shot. And then the Joker comes, and the Joker or his minions, I don't remember, and they basically kind of like undress her and take pictures of her like naked while she's like lying there bleeding out. It's very, very, very intense. And then he basically lures with Inspector Gordon, he's trying to lure Batman to the abandoned circus. And when he brings Gordon there, so he humiliates Gordon. He also like undresses him, and he puts him in this choking collar, leads him around on a chain. He's standing on a throne with on a pile of babies. It's just very, very, very grotesque. And he's trying to break Gordon down. And then he puts him on this roller coaster ride with a bunch of like gremlins and goblins. And as he's on this roller coaster ride, he basically gives you a philosophy of life. And he says that, what's the point of being normal? Because the world is so crazy and the world is so terrible that it's more rational to be insane. And any normal reaction to the world would be to go insane. And basically, like, I went insane because of the grief and tragedy that happened in my life. I want everyone else around me to go insane so that I can justify my own behavior, and so that I don't feel bad about all the evil that I commit, because what he says is all it takes is one bad day. And Gordon to him is the epitome of the law and of morality. Gordon's always trying to do the right thing and save people. And he wants to break him down and make him go crazy. So while he's on that crazy roller coaster, when he's, spouting his philosophy, like through the megaphone, he also shows him those pictures that he took of his daughter. And so he thinks his daughter is dead. And obviously it's very humiliating, debasing photos of his daughter. And at the end of it, Gordon kind of doesn't say anything. And like he's, his head is down. So the Joker thinks, and he puts him in like a cage. The Joker thinks that he has succeeded in breaking him down, and that vindicates him somehow. And then Batman shows up, and they have this fight, and they talk. And Batman and Joker tells him, oh, don't look, I managed to break Gordon. But the thing is that when Batman came in, he found Gordon, and Gordon was not broken. Gordon tells him, this is what happened, and he says, go apprehend him, but he tells him, do it by the book. We have to show him that our way is right. So no matter, even though the Joker tried to break him down and did like the cruelest things possible to him to try to strip away his humanity, he was not successful. Gordon survived that ordeal, and he still wants to be moral. And he told him to still keep the law. And so they have this so Batman tells him that. He's like, no, you didn't succeed. And then Batman reaches out to the Joker, and he tries to tell him, he says, you still have a chance. He's like, we could still help you. He really, it's like amazing. He says, we don't have to do this. We don't have to keep fighting. It's going to end in both of our deaths. We can help you. We can get you mental health help, basically. And it doesn't have to be this way. And the Joker says, nah, too late. And then it ends with that, classic, like, did he kill him? Did he not kill him?
Yeah.
Because he tells him, the Joker tells him a joke. It's not very funny. It's basically, it's a joke also about mental illness and about joining people in mental illness. He says, the joke is that two thieves were climbing. They wanted to like climb. They were during their thievery. They wanted to climb across like something that they couldn't climb across. So thief one says, "Hey, I'll use my flashlight. I'll put my flashlight on. There'll be a beam of light, and then you can climb on it, and then we can get across." And the second thief says, "Are you crazy? You'll turn it off when I'm on the beam." So, right, the whole joke there shows that both of these people don't have a grasp on reality, and the second person doesn't trust humanity anymore. That he doesn't trust that people will be there for him to support him, that people will just betray him. So it's a very bitter, cynical joke. And the whole premise of it is based on insanity and on irrationality. So that's why it would appeal to the Joker, because and I actually don't know anything about the Joker and Batman, but beside these two things that I read, because I don't do that. But the Joker is clearly a man who has lost his grip on the world and has given up on things being straight and things being right because of things that have happened to him. And honestly, I think because of the choices he made, like he didn't have to quit his job, and then the Batman, stands for justice. He stands for what's right. And at the end, you don't know, Batman laughs along with him, because I think that there's, Batman is someone who can understand that this is where the Joker is at, and that he has to just, join him or pretend to join him, because he's never going to reach the Joker. He's gone. Like his rationality and his humanity is gone. And then he picks him up, and you don't know whether he killed him or not, because
Yeah, it's
the
like
light
puts
goes
the
out.
hands on the shoulders, and it's like, is he just holding himself up from laughing, or is he gonna like choke him? And so holding. One other thing about Barbara, I just wanted to say, because she's actually Batgirl in the comics, and then after this event, they kind of made that canon, because this is kind of like a semi-canon thing, because comics are like weird like that. But she becomes paralyzed from the shot because it goes through her spine, but she becomes another hero called Oracle, which is like the guy in the chair type of thing, like hacking and doing all kinds of stuff. So I like that. That's cool. Still made her a hero. And she's in a wheelchair and stuff. So, but yeah. It's a messed up story, but yeah, you can infer a lot about that.
But yeah, what do you guys think? I have my theory about what it means to the story, but let's hear from you.
Yeah, with Kieran, I feel like it could be a sign almost of his perseverance. Like he will not be broken. Like it didn't take one bad day to like destroy him. Like he's probably had a lot of terrible days, but he still maintains his morality and stuff. And I feel like that is the main thing in terms of him from the story.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's like there's two ways you could look at it. You could look at him on more of the side of like him taking from the story, like what Bundin said, it's it doesn't have to take just one bad day. If you keep your morality, you can do good. But it could also go the other way and say one bad day you could snap and you could just go insane from it all.
I mean, I think someone can have good morals and still be capable of bad things, and then someone can have bad morals and also be capable of good things. Like, although likely unintentional, still happens. Like, someone can try to help the world and end up only harming it in the process. Then, someone who maybe just trying to help themselves may accidentally help who knows how many other people in the process, though. It does seem rare. The first one of people with good intentions doing bad things seems much more likely, especially in PH, if, the leader and a lot of people in Phantom Scythe, whether it be they're there for social change or that they're there for money because they can't support themselves any other way.
So I actually think the Killing Joke, the Joker in the Killing Joke is talking about the leader, because the Joker started out making a bad decision. He quit his job to become a comedian, right? He quit his job to do his passion, and he didn't succeed. He wasn't good at it. And instead of going back to work, he chose to do crime instead. So that was a bad decision. But, you can say it wasn't like a crime of violence. It was some kind of crime of theft or whatever. So it was sliding scale, going down a little bit. But then what ended up happening is that because it was combined with the tragedy that happened to his wife, he went insane. And, I don't know if you could say, like, is he then not responsible for his actions? I don't think so. I think he gave up and decided to not even try. And I think that very much parallels the leader, because he probably started out with, like you said, a good intention or not so bad intention. And the way that he went about it was not a good way, but it was probably not so bad. But then it seems like he went insane. And I don't remember exactly what happens yet, but like, we probably can't say what happened. I don't think we found out about it here yet in episode 38, but something bad happened and that triggered him. And I think ever since then, he's just been insane, and he does terrible things with his organization because he's lost his grip on reality, and he's lost his morals because of what happened to him. So that's my suspicion of how this relates to the story. I don't think it talks about Kieran. I think it's talking about the leader.
Could be.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
could see that. Yeah, that's a good point. I remember like looking at this story the first time when I first read this episode, like I thought of it and I'm just like, oh no, is this a warning? I don't know, but like looking back on it now, I kind of see where you're coming from on that, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then if Joker's the leader, then I tend to think of Kieran as maybe Inspector Gordon in a way where it kind of like,
Yeah, that's what I
He-
kind of meant with it. It's like Kieran is the one who's like, they tried to break him, but he wouldn't break. So in a
Yeah.
way, that is kind of what it is. It's like he's linked to the leader, you know, his whole thing is against the leader specifically. So it could be like a parallel there with that.
definitely.
And then, so Batman would maybe be Lauren, a vigilante justice seeker.
I don't know if there would be a specific parallel to Lauren, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, you know, teamwork and stuff.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
It could either be, it could be Lauren, or it could be like the law or something, like the side that Lauren fights on, I suppose.
I actually thought that the Gordon would be like the APD, like people like Herman or March, because, you know, who do things by the book, because Lauren and Kieran are not doing things by the book. But yeah, I mean, it's a metaphor, right? I don't think we can say everything is exactly, you know, connected, but I think we can draw some ideas from it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So do you want to hear the story of the man who laughs? It's much shorter.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know that one as well, but I know that is like another Joker story.
Mhm.
So the man who laughs is much more simple. It's basically, you know, the Joker is on the run again, and he's taken over. He's threatening some people who are in positions of power in the city, and they're not portrayed very lightly. So this is kind of like they're the rich people. They're the people who own, like, you know, these big factories and big businesses, and they're kind of like not snobby, but like they're arrogant characters. So that definitely ties into like think the Purple Hyacinth story, where like the rich people are kind of uncaring and unknowing. So the Joker threatens those people, and what he does is he somehow infects them with his poison that makes them die laughing, and they all turn into him when they laugh. When they die, their face also becomes white with the green and the red lips and everything. So you know, it's also, I think, a little bit of analogy of like, I want to take everyone down. You have to be like me. Like he's jealous of this, like a 𝗬𝗵𝗲 phenomenon. He's jealous of their success, jealous of the position they hold in society. So he wants to take them down and make them be like him. And then he threatens Batman, actually, or rather Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne pretends to be insane, and he pretends to have that happen to him so he can escape. Pretends to turn into the Joker, and then his butler helps him out. And he has like a flashback of when his parents were killed. You know, they were walking into an alley, and he sees them getting killed before his eyes. Not so sure how that's relevant, but that maybe. And you know, because we know Kieran maybe had his parents killed in front of him. We assume he had this very tragic background, so that may be a connection. And then he ends up discovering that he sees him studying. He finds like his office basically, and he sees maps of the sewer system underground, and he realizes that he plans on poisoning the water supply. And with this poison, it makes everybody like him and die laughing. And he discovers him about to pour the poison in there, and he has like poured the poison into like the reservoir or something. He's about to like open the floodgates, and he has this choice, right? He's got the Joker. He's, you know, they've been fighting, and he's got him, and he thinks to himself, oh, it'd be so easy to just throw him into the poison, and he would die, and then the problem would be solved. And then he chooses not to. He says, you know, I have to do the right thing. I have to put him in prison. And so that's what ends up happening. So the way I think this is related, this goes to your theory of the underground tunnels. And I think that theory, you know, with perhaps being, you know, using the underground tunnels to either poison the city, or just as like we know the Phantom Scythe uses like underground tunnels. So I kind of think that may be the connection.
That could be it.
Yeah. And I see the parallels between like the Joker being like the leader again, and then I was like, I think as you said earlier, like Batman could represent Kieran, where it's like pretends to be with him and then later comes around and stabs him in the back. And no, keep going.
One point that I forgot is that the Joker at some point goes to this house for like the criminally insane, and he hands them a bunch of guns, like automatic rifles, and he lets them loose. And again, it's like more of his philosophy of trying to wreak havoc on the city and just bring everything down, because he can't handle the fact that everyone else has a normal life and he doesn't anymore. And he just takes like the people who really have no capacity, equips them with killing machines, and lets them loose on the city, because he just wants chaos, right? He's the opposite of, he doesn't want there to be order in the world and to be right and wrong, to be reason, because that goes against his philosophy, because that would show him to be an evil person. He'd rather have everyone else be evil and chaotic and crazy than to admit that he is in the wrong.
Yeah, about the tunnel theory, it's a bit like, later PH content, but yeah, now that you mention it, it's pretty sus. Like, seems like a very heavy plot point.
Yeah, and those of you who saw my very long presentation also know that I read the Victor Hugo novel, The Man Who Laughs, and I'm gonna make a whole separate video out of it because I already had the presentation ready. So all of you who are watching this, there's a separate video that is all about Victor Hugo's The Man Who Laughs and how I think it may be related to this story. So you can check that out separately. Should I do a very short synopsis of it here?
Go for it.
Yeah, do it.
So basically, okay, the parts that are relevant to the story is that there is this child whose face has been disfigured and into a permanent laugh, and that's why it's called The Man Who Laughs. So this is taking place in England in the late 1600s, and he grows up. He's basically ends up using the people who disfigured his face as kids. They did this to present this person as like a freak and like a show, and this was how they would make money. And this was something that was done to him as a kid. And he ends up being adopted by this very kind man. And that is what they do to make money. But it's kind of like he reclaims it because he does it willingly, and he does it as part of this whole nice elaborate show. And so it's kind of no longer necessarily a point of humiliation for him in that sense, but it's a permanent disfigurement, and he's considered very ugly by everyone else. And lots and lots of intrigue, which I'm not going to get into, but basically we learn that he was the son of a noble who was a Republican, which in the context of English society, and they deposed the king. The king killed King Charles I, and Oliver Cromwell,
like Cromwell,
Cromwell's,
as the republic. And then when they reinstated the monarchy, his father, Lord Clancharlie, had exiled himself to Switzerland because he did not support the monarchy and he didn't want to go back to the monarchy. So he was a staunch Republican, and he didn't want to, unlike many of his fellow nobles who switched sides again, basically once the monarchy was back in power, he refused, and he was staunch to his values, and he stayed in Switzerland. So it turns out this guy was his legitimate son, and the king, King James II, had found out that he had had a son. He was upset. This guy, is a regicide, and he disfigured this child because he didn't want him to inherit his father's estate and his title as as a peer in the House of England. Long story short, they find out that it's him. They instate him as a peer. He has been someone who was always among all the poorest classes, and he goes to the House of Lords. They're about to vote whether to give Queen Anne's husband an increase in salary for doing nothing. The whole story talks about how the nobles have everything and the poor have nothing, and how the nobles don't care about the poor, and they are living in their own world, and they're completely unaware of other people, and they just are living their life of luxury while other people are very poor. And so he stands up to the House of Lords, and he gives this whole wonderful speech about how how could you do this? You have to open your eyes, and you have everything and other people have nothing. And then unfortunately for him, his face comes into the light, and when they see his face, just like he was disfigured to do, they make everyone laugh. Everyone bursts out laughing because that's what his face produces. And he's heartbroken. He leaves. Long story short, everyone he loves dies. Basically, he ends up committing suicide, and it's a very, very tragic story. And the message of the story is rich versus poor, good versus evil. There's a lot of things there. And the part that I think relates here is the twist, right? So the twist where the guy who was the monster of the story the guy who was, while very moral, he was always a moral person, but you know, in the eyes of the world, he was considered lowly. You know, he was in the lowest class, like the performer is the lowest class. So he turned out to be a noble, and the disfigurement was done by the royalty. So I think it could be that Kieran was disfigured or put into this position by someone in the royalty who didn't want him to be, you know, who he really was, whether that's a son of a royalty, a cousin of royalty, nobility, something, and that somebody in the royalty did this to him. So my bet is on the person who's most sus in the royalty, which is I think Queen Elizabeth, which relates to my theory that I think Queen Elizabeth seems like she's.
A second, I thought you were talking about like the actual queen, and I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
it was
Anyway.
like in England.
Sorry, we didn't talk. No, Queen Elizabeth.
How Queen Elizabeth is the
Yeah.
real villain of PH.
Right. So we haven't really talked about Queen Elizabeth yet, since we're on 38. But basically, she seems very sus and been there. But I would not be surprised if she had something to do with. Anyway, so the way I think that the Victor Hugo's novel could relate to this is that Queen Elizabeth had Kieran put into this position, you know, made into an assassin, made into a monster, so that he can't assume his noble role.
That could be interesting.
It would be very interesting because like I'm personally also banking on Kieran being a part of like the aristocracy, like not necessarily a royal maybe, but like a nobility, something like that. I'm banking on this, and I like this theory.
Honestly, I don't think Kieran needs to be a royal. Like, I don't think it's really gonna be very important to the plot. Like, I guess it adds drama, but I don't really see how the plot would improve from it, aside from getting more readers who are like, you know, the royal assassin or something.
I mean, I don't know how they would be able to advertise that made spoilers, right?
Yeah, that would be.
But I mean, like I don't know. I've always kind of had canon that he was like from nobility originally, and that's just it's like a personal thing, you know, not even really something supported much by plot, but more like, oh, wouldn't that be nice? Like for me, anyways.
I'm just like it would add to the drama. That's what it would
be
do.
Interesting, but I don't see it like being super substantial. Mainly because Kieran is supposed to be like he is foil like class-wise to Lauren, and Lauren already is rich and has royal ties probably because like, you know, her uncle is the chief of police, like what super high-ranking man. So like I don't know, because of Kieran's arc, like I just don't see, well, I'm biased because I know like what happens right in season 2 when we get those episodes in season 2 that we haven't gone to yet. I don't know. I'm biased because like Kieran doesn't need to be a royal, and making him one would kind of just be detrimental to who he is and what has shaped him, because he does come from poverty, and I don't want to drown that aspect of him out with the whole he is a royal plotline.
Oh, this could totally tie in very well with the end, because I know we've talked in previous podcasts about how would we like it to end. And, you know, we said we would like to see the society in a positive ending, right? Not in a tragedy ending. We would like to see the society being overturned, right? And being helped along and made different. So if he's a royal, I mean, this would totally tie into what happens in Victor Hugo's, only we hope it's successful, right? Where the man who should have been a noble ended up growing up in poverty, now understands what the poor class goes through, tries to change the noble class. So in Victor Hugo, because he's a depressing human being and everything ends poorly in his novels, he doesn't succeed. But if 𝗵𝗲 is written as a positive ending, which is not certain, it could be that he will use his position and his experience to try to make changes in society.
Oh, I could add to that by saying like in the novel it says like he tries to change how things are done, but then with his deformity everyone laughs at him. I feel like with Kieran, if this is how it goes, he could try to change, but with his background and his everything that's happened, like no one, so you don't know what you're talking about, like why should we listen to you? Then you have Lauren, who's already been there, she has ties, she can help him out with like support. And it's just like, no, actually listen to what he has to say.
Perfect power couple.
Yeah, I don't think Kieran needs to be a royal. I think it's only detrimental to his character. Or I don't think he needs to be high class at all. Like, yeah. Kieran being high class kind of just, like, it makes him, what, tragic because he had the potential to be rich, but he wasn't. Like, that's the tragedy we're going
the
for.
opposite of tragic. I mean, yeah, he like his life in the PH. I mean,
I know, but
yes,
like,
sucks.
no, but like because of that fall from wealth to poverty, he ended up in the Phantom Scythe, likely because of, you know, poverty. He ended up in the Phantom Scythe, and then, you know, he ended up becoming the Purple Hyacinth. And I feel like if we went with that plot line where it's like he wouldn't have had to go through this had he been rich, it sort of skims over the actual problems of the PA, of like the PH and like the PS, because like someone would have taken his place instead. It just wouldn't have been Kieran. And if we go with like, oh, this could have been avoided had he been rich, it wouldn't have been avoided. It just would have been someone else.
I hear your point. I know what you're saying. You're saying it's like, it's unfair, and I get it. But I don't think that, I think it's different because Kieran was specifically, I don't think it's that, oh, he was made poor and then he joined the Phantom Scythe. I think he was kidnapped and abducted and tortured into the Phantom Scythe. And I don't think it's that dynamic. But I hear what you're saying is that like, oh, he should have been rich, where you're saying everyone should have been treated nicely, right? Everyone should have had a chance at life. If I understand you correctly.
Yeah, but like, because like, I don't know, it feels like a plot like where all your problems would be fixed if you're rich. And while yes, that is true, it does, not everyone does have that privilege, like, you know, to have substantial amounts of wealth or to be even a royal themselves. And so like, it's just, it ignores the actual problem of what makes it a, you know, what makes it a problem when you're poor, and why being impoverished is a problem and what causes it. Because Kieran being rich is ironic because if he had lived rich or not, like if he lived rich, he would have contributed to the same issue that he in like the actual PH suffered, in the actual PH reality suffered from. I'm sorry, I'm like all over the place tonight. I can't think straight.
No, it's kind of ironic as well, because you could say that for literally any of the privileged characters, right?
Yeah.
Had they grown up less fortunate, they would probably be in his thing too. It just shows like how circumstances shape what you do. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think Kieran is supposed to be emblematic of average poor person who joins the PS. He's clearly singled out, you know.
Yeah, he was chosen for a reason that we don't know yet, whether it be like survival of him climbing the ranks, whether he was like, I don't know, payback as revenge or something, like if he's the son of someone important.
Yeah,
where Kieran started off before he was in the Phantom Scythe was 𝗃𝗏𝗄. So, which is something we learn later, but
I don't know if we learned that actually.
He's
never
episode 68.
No,
they don't say that he's from there. He just knows the area. They don't explicitly say that he grew up there or anything.
Yeah, he just said, I know the line you're thinking of. I know the line you're thinking of. It's the way he phrased it. He said he could have been, but he never said he was.
Yeah, I mean, like the orphans in 𝗃𝗏𝗄 have to come from somewhere, though.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, there's a giant issue there. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the person who would represent the orphans is
Bella.
Bella.
We're not there yet.
I think we gave up on like
say or no? I don't
know.
Certain person.
Okay, well,
back to the story.
We're all in theories. We've only gotten like a quarter way through.
Oh god.
Well, we're gonna have another book soon, but, but I don't think that book will take as long to discuss. So anyway, Lauren, kind of puts them down and she looks at the books and thinks, a bit of a bookworm, isn't he? And it's a lot of books. And she's like, why am I so surprised? He engages in normal human activities. And she shakes her head. And you know what? You are surprised because you are used to seeing him as, your image of him is assassin, right? And most people, that's all he is, right? They don't think of anything else of him. He's just a horrible, bad person. And, I think I once said to my husband, like there was something a friend of ours did, and he kept, repeating that. And I said, don't judge a person by their worst moment. And obviously, like for Kieran, it's not just a worst moment. It's like a lot of things, but he isn't just that. There's more to him. And Lauren is discovering that, and it's unnerving to her.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like how society sees him and how Lauren sees him as well, they all see him as like the entity, the purple hyacinth, but like no one has ever seen the man underneath, which is Kieran, who has completely different like ways he lives his life outside of what he does.
And it's also a way of like dehumanizing to like justify in your head, like the only way that they can do these things is they were a bad person, like an evil monster or whatever, like like not human, but like he lives and breathes and eats and sleeps. She's like, he has hobbies, person, right? And it's kind of weird to like think of people are capable of this. I think to her anyways, especially him, because she hasn't really thought of him beyond like their arrangement and what he presents. So it's interesting,
yeah.
And then she looks at his bookshelf again as she points out another book, and everything else is blurred out, but we see The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. And she pulls it out for a second and she says, I used to read that when I was younger. I wonder what his childhood was like. And she flips through it. Was it happy? When did it turn so bad? So before we discuss that, let's discuss The Secret Garden, because I definitely think there's a connection between The Secret Garden and this story. So many of you want to talk about The Secret Garden, because yes, I also reread this book. I happen to have read this book quite a lot when I was a kid, and I watched the movie like a billion times, but I also reread it in preparation for this.
I honestly can't remember the plot of this that much. I saw the movie like a couple times when I was younger, but I can't really remember how it goes.
Yeah, because like I read the synopsis for the plot. Like I read everything about the plot, but I didn't read the actual book, which is sad because it's on my bookshelf. I just never read it.
Oh my god, same. Okay, so like last year I was like able to pick up this old copy of The Secret Garden. Like this is like early pandemic, right? This is like I don't know, like right about this time last year, and I was like, I'm gonna read this, and then I never did read it because I am illiterate and I can't read books.
Okay, so I will summarize it for you.
Take it away.
Yeah, so The Secret Garden is about this little girl named Mary, and Mary grows up in India. Her parents are British colonizers stationed in India. And they are not very attentive parents. They completely ignore her. She's raised by her, how do they call her again? An Indian word for her, like nanny, basically. And 𝗵𝗲𝗪. And one day her parents die in the movie, it's like a fire and earthquake, but in the book, it's like typhus or something. And everyone dies. And she's all alone. And in the end, she's discovered. And they send her to England to live with her uncle, who she has never seen. And she comes to this house in England, and it's this giant manor house, and her uncle is gone. Her uncle was married and had a kid, but the wife died. And ever since the wife died, he's been a broken man. He just wanders all around Europe. He ignores his child, and he just has never gotten over his grief of losing his wife. And Mary is kind of left to be on her own. Now, Mary was a very, very spoiled brat. She was around 8 when this happened, 8, and she's like around 10 when this whole story happens. She's been very, very spoiled. Her Indian nanny spoiled her. She was like a little terror. She just bossed everyone around. She expects everyone to listen to her. She's been waited on hand and foot her whole life. And she comes to England, and she has this maid to help her. But this maid is this very, what's her name? I think her name is Martha. Her maid is this, country girl, very like simple, but very emotionally healthy. And she's like, I'm not getting you dressed. You can't dress yourself, because Mary, of course, never put on her own dress because her Indian nanny did it for her. And she's like, entertain me. She's like, I'm not entertaining you. You go entertain yourself. Go play outside, So Martha is this very healthy influence for her, and she kind of slowly reparents her, really. And Mary, first is lonely and bored, and she eventually starts exploring the house. And this house is very, big and empty, and there's like no one in it. It's very depressing. So she starts going outside, and she ends up discovering this secret garden. And this secret garden used to belong to the wife, right, or her aunt who has died. And we know that this was her special place. She used to tend to it. She made a beautiful garden. And the uncle closed it off once she died. He was very depressed. He closed it off. He didn't want anyone going in there. But she finds a way in. There's this robin that helps her. And she sees that, it's all overgrown, but she sees this potential in it. And she ends up going there every day and tending. She starts tending to the garden, and that's her occupation. And she grows healthier, and she grows, she gets to be less temperamental, and she grows nicer. And she ends up meeting 2 boys throughout the course of this story. First, she meets Dickens, who is the younger brother of Martha. So he's around her age, and he's this great kid. Like, he's just super, he's like also around her age. And he helps her out with the garden every day, and they grow closer and they become friends. He's like a very, very good person. And then one day, while she's wandering along in the house, she hears this crying, and she discovers that it's another little boy also around her age. And he's sitting there in the bed. And who is he? He's none other than her cousin, the uncle's son. And for all these years, he's been in the house, and he was kind of a sickly child. And the uncle was very worried that he would die because his wife had died. So he treated him like an invalid, and everyone around him treated him like an invalid. And this little boy thinks he's an invalid. He's like, look, my back is crooked. I'm never gonna grow up. I'm never gonna be an adult. I have to stay in this bed all day. The sunlight is unhealthy for me. And Mary, becomes friends with him. And eventually she's like, you're not sick. You're just sitting in bed all day, but you're not sick. And he's like, no, I am. Anyway, she ends up prompting him. They have this argument, and they get into this heated debate. Finally, he, despite her, he shows her, and he goes outside. And slowly but surely, he keeps going outside. And he also he also starts helping out in the garden. And he also becomes friends with Dickens. And he just blossoms. And he eventually, they end up building this beautiful garden. This garden is gorgeous. The uncle comes back. They have this whole revelation scene where he's like, look, Dad, I can walk. And look, Dad, this garden is blooming again, and it's beautiful again. And it's a whole metaphor for rejuvenation, because both Mary and Collins, her cousin, and the garden were all neglected, and they were all unhealthy, and they were all not flourishing. And then over time, with dedication and a healthy attitude, they all flourished and became happy and healthy and beautiful. So I think there's some points here about a girl and 2 boys and childhood friends. And if you remember, Lauren mentions that she and Will used to play in her mother's garden. So guys, take it away with your theories.
It's not subtle.
It's not subtle at all.
Who was friends with someone else? Which little girl had a boyfriend and a mom with a garden?
I don't know.
Which 2 boys might have been friends?
Well,
Also, parents dying.
Oh.
Yes. Living with the uncle.
The uncle. With the cousin who's very closed off.
Right? Yeah, is Will Collins. Interesting. I was thinking, well, I don't know who Dickens would be. Who's the healthy kid?
Dylan.
Dylan? But then what
We
Oh.
don't know his name yet.
Oh, sorry.
Can we blur that?
It's okay.
I don't even remember when his name is introduced, but yeah.
It's literally, I think it's introduced in the finale.
Oh, yeah.
The scene of the finale, my
Okay.
dumb self forgot.
I'm pretty sure we've dropped it before. It's good.
Yeah, true.
But
So,
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna call him white hair boy. White hair boy. He was the one who helped with flowers. He tended the garden. A healthy relationship, that sort of thing. And then Will's the one with the rich parents who he's very closed off. He has a lot of expectations. He's basically crippled by expectations.
Crippled by his father's unhealthy expectations. Except in the story, the father actually is a nice guy. He's just traumatized by grief, because guess what? His wife died.
Oh no.
sus. It's very sus.
It's sus.
mean, she
So-
ain't dead yet, but
She ain't dead yet, but she basically did.
And-
She a corpse, just not a corpse. She like, you
Yeah.
know,
She a corpse, but
90
not a corpse in the ground.
yeah, like she's a 99% loading corpse.
She on life support, honey.
She's
So I'm
past
trying
life
to-
support. She's on her.
She
Her
on
life is already
hospice.
flashing before her eyes. She's just
Hospice. Oh god.
Oh god.
So we see a lot of
The
parallels.
hospice.
I'm trying to make predictions. I don't have any good predictions though.
I
Because
don't
like
know if we can infer any predictions from this, just because it's like more of a thematic thing, like because you could apply the theme of rejuvenation to like many things within the story. So I feel like we can, like the flowers in the garden, let it bloom over time.
yeah, I think it's like, you know, we're only 39 with the prologue episodes in right now. It's a bit early to be thinking about how the series is going to end.
Yeah. I think
How many
maybe
more
just
strings will be pulled. With
Yeah.
that being said, do you guys never
yeah, I think with like the overall message we can take from this is if in this story the relationships are nourished, they can blossom into something beautiful and healthy.
it's a very
Yeah.
positive story, by the way. It's like totally not Purple Hyacinth. There's like some trauma, but like it's mainly very healthy. It's like the moral of the story is everything is good, you know, and like be a good person and everything will be good. It's very much the opposite of Purple.
Maybe it's just
Vibe.
telling us that Purple Hyacinth will end with a positive thing, you know? Who's to say?
I like
Yes.
the way you think.
Who's to say?
yeah, I don't think I really can't see PH ending in tragedy, like, you know, all that tragedy for more tragedy. Like, it's realistic, but I don't think PH is going to take that route.
I just want satisfying. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Like I've said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it needs to come full
good
circle,
ending.
right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I just want a good ending. That's all I want.
Well, that was fun. So we got through 4 books essentially, and their relation to Purple Hyacinth. I think that was a lot of fun. So, and now she thinks about, you know, she has these really, you know, she's really thinking about Kieran as a person. And she thinks back to, right, I wonder what his childhood was like. Was it happy? When did it turn so bad? And she's finally recognizing that maybe he wasn't always this way, that he wasn't born an evil monster assassin. He was a human being and he still is a human being. And something, I think she recognizes something must have happened to him to make him be this way.
And also the fact that they both read the same book and she's like, oh yeah, I read this as a child. Like she never pictured him being a child probably
Yeah.
until this moment, right?
A
She's like,
child.
no. One thing was
A child.
no.
Are you quoting something again?
Vine.
Vine.
Fine. Oh, okay.
R.I.P. Mindy.
We will show you some Vine
Yeah,
compilations,
yeah.
Mindy.
I am
I'll
too
show you
old
the
for
GIF.
this.
I'll show
We
you the
should,
GIF.
We should like make a video of showing Mindy meme compilations and just make that content.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like
I'm
here are
only
all the things we
31.
read.
But yeah, so just seeing like Lauren in this moment, she's like, oh yeah, he could have been at the same time I was a child, he could have been a child release. And he's like, oh yeah, he wasn't always like, you're not born an assassin, you're not born like this. So
Yeah,
again,
he wasn't always
humanizing him.
like this.
That's very poignant.
Yeah, I find it interesting because if you recall back at episode 20, she's just like he looked into her background. She never looked down on his because she's like, I have no interest in looking into anything about you. And
20
now look
chapters
where we
into
are,
like picking through his books.
wondering about his childhood. How far we've come.
But yeah.
It's a good moment. I mean, she's in his house and she's opening up to him more.
Yeah.
Even if he's not there.
The events from the previous night also have her being like,
Mhm.
oh yeah,
He's a
that's
person.
a human person.
It's a human person. Anyways, I really like the like setting in this scene, like or like just the vibes.
Mhm.
Like, you know, it's a very light blue and it's very calming and peaceful, and you really get a sense of Lauren right now. Like, even though she's learning a lot of stuff about Kieran. It's not really like super surprising because of like just, I don't know, climate. What? I don't know the right word right now, but it feels like very peaceful and like just realization rather than like shock of learning. Just
Definitely.
it's comforting. I can't believe I would say that about Kieran's apartment, but like
It's very
I
cozy.
mean, it is. It is cozy.
I would chill in there and read some books if I could
Hell
read.
yeah.
So then
I would move in there actually permanently.
No, I would just
space.
True. You know what? I'll sleep on the floor. I'll sleep on the carpet. It's fine.
Here's a couch, but we just got a bigger bed. That's all. Okay, we have to stop with these horrible jokes. They're not horrible, but I have, by the way, I've said many times, the PH fandom is so mild compared to the Midnight Population fandom. You don't even want to know what comes out of people's mouths and our mouths.
Bruh, I read that comic. I'm not in the fandom though. I've seen the webtoon comments enough to know that I'm scared of the Discord server. I'm scared of it.
So it's mainly on Facebook. The fandom is on Facebook more than Discord.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's quite salty. Thirsty. Sorry, I used the wrong word. Sorry, thirsty.
This is why I'm not on Facebook.
Honestly. Nothing.
No, they're thirsty on Instagram too, everywhere, wherever they are.
I mean, I feel like in every single aspect about in the fandom, like except for the Discord, people are like thirsting for Kieran. However, in the Discord,
we're
people are
psychoanalyzing
shamelessly saying the man has no ass because he does not.
Oh my god!
Oh, do I need to bring up this argument again?
It is Kieran slander 24/7. Okay, this is server culture fire. You cannot change it because you're correct.
No, listen.
This man can have flaws. Okay,
I'm not gonna get into the argument again. I already said it last week, but
exactly.
Just remember my words. Remember my words, Fwoot.
We did the episode together, I believe.
We're all here.
You're all here. You all heard me.
We know.
Okay. Next, Lauren puts the book back and she's like, I shouldn't be looking through his stuff. She has some bit of self-respect or something. And she turns around and she sees a crutch, it's like against the wall. And she has this little smile on her face. And she takes it because she sees our Kieran boy has been so thoughtful and has procured a crutch from who knows where. Maybe he already has one in his apartment because, he's been through some
broke a leg or two before.
But he's thoughtful. He also, guys, just saying, he came in her room while she was sleeping.
Came in his room while she was sleeping in his bed.
No, bro. I remember when this episode first came out, everyone went crazy because he's like, yo, he saw her in his bed, in his shirt, no less. And it's like, y'all, I literally what he probably did, he opened the door, dead.
Yeah, boy, probably put it.
Oh my god,
for
Kieran,
like a second, and then
do the bare minimum, and y'all will be celebrating it. Oh my god.
No, wait,
Listen, he's a murderer. We gotta celebrate the bare minimum.
Yes. Listen, it's not bare minimum.
There's your standards of men fire disappointing.
Guys, look at the panel. Look at the panel. If he would have wanted to stick that crutch in, all he had to do was open the handle and stick it in to the left of the door. But no, my friends, he opened the door, walked around it to the other side of the door and put the crutch there. He went in the room. Okay, people? Proof from the drawing.
Or maybe it was in there from last night because he said that like she would need a crutch last night, right? So maybe he left it in there.
That's why he left it. He knew that she.
But like he left it like when she went in, or she brought it with her. What if she walked into that room with the crutch? And
no. I will argue. I will argue with that, saying she looked at it, and this panel specifically went like, oh, look, it's there, and she smiled at it. It was not her bringing it. He did it. He did it. I don't know what time of day or night he did it, but he did it.
Well, your boy was up cleaning the blood out of the carpet, so
true.
Evidence. Ooh, we got evidence.
Because he doesn't want to be framed for murder. Like he already has killed people. But like, if people find blood on his carpet, they're gonna be like, have you killed people? And he's gonna be like, no, even though he's like the purple hyacinth.
No. this is not nice to bring things up like that. You have to sometimes forget things. Okay. Important.
Wow.
Do you, every time you argue with your spouse, do you remember every single bad thing they ever did? No, it's not healthy.
Yes.
Yes, it's not
Yes. Yes, you do.
Well, you shouldn't, because then you'll always be mad. You must learn to forgive and forget.
I do. Yeah. You forgive and forget until they try you.
Yeah. Forgive and forget until they cross a line.
I swear I'm functional.
So anyway, Lauren comes out of the bedroom. Her shirt does not cover very much, just saying. Like, she clearly is missing pants. And she says Kieran, and it's a really beautiful scene because you see like the morning light streaming in and this beautiful domestic apartment, all these kitchen tools. I love like it's like teal color, dark teal wall and green, you know, couch. And he said, looks like he's not here anymore. And she thinks to what he said last night, where, you know, she looks at the couch and she thinks what he said, you can go sleep in the bedroom, I'll take the couch. And she wonders, did he even sleep at all? Because she sees he's not here. It's early in the morning. They came back pretty late. And, you know, she has the crutch and he's out.
And the bed looks barely touched.
The couch,
The couch doesn't look like he slept on it. I mean, if he did, it doesn't seem like it was for a long time.
Yeah.
And she looks around and she sees, you know, a record player, records, looks like some photo albums, and she thinks they're, well, yes, I guess not. It looks like photo albums to me, but I guess not.
The record player,
She
he's an indie kid.
She says there aren't any pictures, which is like not surprising because we don't know what happened to him in his childhood, but I'm pretty sure whatever happened, either he wouldn't want to preserve the memories, or he, from the time when maybe it was good, he doesn't have any of them.
Yeah.
He may not have been able to like afford developing photos as well if he did come from a poorer background.
If he did, yeah, he probably might not have any to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, with my theory that he was ripped away from his family and kidnapped, then he
wouldn't have any anyway.
Yeah. So she looks around and she sees on the desk, she sees some drawings and a stack of papers, and she looks in shock and she's like, are those? And she goes closer and she sees a lot of drawings and a whole pile of papers with a ton of sketches on them. And she thinks to herself, that's probably what I expected the least coming from him. And she takes a closer look. You see, you know, a whole like drawing set, and, you know, so that's, you know, it's a nice touch to see that Kieran likes to draw.
Yeah. And from what we can see, it kind of looks like he likes to draw like people out and about. Like he kind of looks like he people watches and then kind of like draws what he sees.
Mm-hmm. You know, that takes a certain level of like, just to sit out and draw someone. Think about like, this is the closest I think of in terms of like pop culture, like, you know, Jack from Titanic, how he just like got invested in like the lives and stuff. And it's just like, you have to be really interested in life and humanity to like feel that as like your preferred subject. So just like,
man's got a passion for people's lives.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a little reading. Whoops.
I know, right? That could be taken so badly.
Oh, dang it.
I'm sorry.
But yeah, I mean, he's taken an interest in you know, any random person on the street, right? It's not like he's drawing certain people. He's not drawing he's not drawing like scenery. He's interested in everyone, and it's totally the opposite of what we would think of him, and of the image that he gives off as this heartless, uncaring person. You know, he's the opposite. He captures the humanity in anybody.
Well, he captures life, right? People just living.
Mm-hmm.
So
everything that he can't have, right? A normal
People
life.
going, yeah.
Oh, sweetie pie.
This is getting depressing already.
Yeah. And then she sees a door and she looks at it and she says, that door. And right, because the door she came from, the other door is the door that she came from. And that door looks like the bathroom. And the other door is the entrance door. So there's one door. And she, of course, because she's curious, she can't let things go. She walks over and and she tries to open it. And surprise, surprise. Why is it the only locked door in this apartment? I wonder what could be behind that door.
Or
I've
starting
seen
a K-pop shrine or something.
Oh goodness.
I've seen theories go from like before we like learned, because we know now some of it at least, but like people were like, oh, that's where like he grows the hyacinths, right?
Yeah.
Maybe he keeps bunnies in their hoops or something.
Fluffy.
Oh, not the bunny.
Fluffy.
Man, the
No.
nostalgia.
Maybe, who'd
Oh my god, that was like a
say?
year ago.
You're not
Damn.
like a couple longer than a year, but yeah.
Yeah. Nah. Could keep bunnies. Could keep rocks. You know, anything.
Keep rocks.
Yeah.
Pet
So
rocks.
of course, at this moment, by the way, we have like 15 minutes, so just saying.
Yeah,
Just keep track of that.
Oof.
So yeah, at this moment, of course, while she's trying to open the locked door, because of classic, who comes back in home? We have a 𝗂𝗏, she like gives this completely startled look, and then the best panel ever. Kieran walks in, his bag slung over his shoulder, the lights coming in behind him, and he's like, honey, I'm home.
I love this song.
No, just the first thing I thought when I saw this panel, just like, I want his boots. I want his shoes.
You like
Really?
some straps up to the knee.
Yes, the straps and like
Wait, what is
the
it?
aesthetic. The aesthetic.
Fire. They look like those like, what are they called? Like demonias? I don't remember what that brand is called, but you know, those like platform boots where they have like
Yes.
those like pokey straps.
Yes.
He's wearing those.
Yes. Dude, no, you don't know how many hours I spent trying to find these shoes. Anyways, moving on.
Yeah, so there's the shoes, but I think the more essential part of this panel is, you know, Kieran, there's two aspects to him, right? There's the part of him that makes fun of everything and that exaggerates and is sarcastic. So ostensibly on the outside, he's saying, honey, I'm home, because it's ironic. But I think deep down on the inside, this is what he really wants in his life. He wants to have people to come home to, people who care about him, people who are there for him. And you know what? I know we always say like romantic, platonic. It doesn't matter. Either way, he wants intimacy, friendship, love, caring, affection, a safe home where he can be. And I think that him saying this is sarcastic, but I also think that it's a genuine cry for what he really wants in his life.
Could be, yeah. I like to picture him just like walking up to the door and just like thinking, just like, oh, I got this. I don't know.
That too. It's, you know, it's both at the same time. But Lauren is not ready for that, because she just rolls her eyes and is like, good morning, subordinate, you know, deliberately using a distancing term, right? To show him, no, we're not at that relationship yet. And she asks, where have you been? And that next panel, people, is incontrovertible proof that Kieran is stunned by her appearance, because he has this completely shocked look at her face. He's looking down. I'm sorry, people, he's looking at her legs. Okay, that's where his eyes are. And you see this beautiful panel of Lauren looking stunning, kind of oblivious to his attention on her and to the fact that she's so beautiful. She's there leaning on the crutch in his pajamas, or in his shirt, long-legged vision.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, she
Mhm.
slept in my bed in my
He's not
room,
looking
and
at
he's
her
kind of
legs,
like
Mindy.
thrown for that. Like he kind of, maybe he didn't really think about it too much, but then like he came home and he's like, oh yeah.
Oh, I did
He
that.
probably like left the shirt like in the room or something for her to
Yeah.
change. He hasn't seen her in it until this point. So it's like he's kind of thrown by kind of the intimacy of it. Because like even beyond the it's like I haven't had anybody come to this house before, and she's in my clothes, in my bed, in my house. Like it's odd for him, and
Yeah.
but also it's like she's pretty. Like it's that too. Like
yeah.
the way that the gaze is framed, like the way that the thing is drawn, it draws Lauren so long. Like he's clearly like looking at her.
Mhm.
It's just, I love this.
Yeah, I love
His
it. And
eyes
also,
are gazing.
yeah, it like the fact, like, I didn't notice that, but I think it's just like him like putting the bag down and stuff. But I'm like, I like to think he's just like, oh. Also, I just want to say, like, Lauren really just like gave not a single F right here. Just I don't know. Personally, if I was in that situation, like I was just wearing like a guy's shirt who I personally don't know that well, I would just be like, please don't, do not see me, sir. Like the level of confidence, my goodness.
And I also think it's because she does not have any feelings towards Kieran at this point. She isn't uncomfortable around him because she just sees him as a person. I mean, she's finally starting to see him as a person, but you know what? She doesn't see him as like someone she's nervous around or someone she's, whose opinion of her she really cares about that much. So yeah, she doesn't have that yet, but Kieran does for her. He's falling first. But of course he, recovers and he's like, oh, there you are. I see that you've slept well. And Lauren's like, obviously more than you did, which is like, excuse me, Lauren, are you accusing him? You just got your stuff from the cave. Say thank you, girl.
Listen, it takes one insomniac to know another one. Like, we all know this man slept like maybe an hour, probably less.
I think knowing what Kieran was doing that night, like when we eventually find out, I'm like, Lauren, tear him up. Destroy him. Like, obliterate his lifeline.
Yep. So at this point, he's like, Lauren, your face. And he like points and she's like, huh, what? Is there something in my face? And she like grabs her face and then bam, he just throws the duffel bag at her face. Because I think he's uncomfortable with this intimacy. He obviously craves it, but he's not used to it. So he's like, okay, I have to defuse this and make this, back to levity and like back to our old antagonistic relationship, and just throws it in her face. It's cute. And he, lies as he walks past her while she's struggling with the duffel. He's like, you still have pillow marks on your face. It's very funny. Lauren obviously gets upset. But then she opens up the duffel bag and she's like, oh, thanks. And she thinks to herself, he really did bring the bag from the cave. Great. At least it won't look like a mad woman in front of the whole office. So she does appreciate it. And, she has this imagination of like Will and Kim and everyone like looking at her with her like torn, stitched up hand and torn maid outfit coming to the office.
It's like, hey, what's up, fam? How you doing? How you doing this fine day?
Hello, fellow kids.
Hello, fellow kids.
How do you do, fellow APD officers?
Yes.
Yep. And Kieran is crunching on an apple behind her while she sighs, gets the bag, and he asks her, how are you holding up? And Lauren's like surprised because it's like a caring question. It's like a normal human question. And she turns around and says, the stitches still sting a little, but at least it didn't start bleeding again. And my ankle isn't killing me anymore, so I'll be fine. And then we have this shot of Kieran with his cute face, just like, chomping on an apple. And we see Lauren looking at him a little suspiciously. And then another close-up of him crunching. And so I think, and then what happens is that he like coughs and looks away from her, averts his eyes and says, there's a cab waiting for you outside. I already paid the driver. So I think that this moment was, them looking at each other as human beings, Lauren with her new image of Kieran based on being in his house and, seeing how he cared about her enough to get her clothing. And, so she's like giving him a look and, he's responding normally, like he's being himself, he's eating an apple. Again, we've never seen him eat before. And he's being a person and doing normal person activities. And I think that that's what's going on between them. They're like seeing each other as people. And then Kieran gets uncomfortable and changes the conversation.
Oh, see, I remember the first time I read this, I interpreted this as just the awkward silence of being with like a person you don't know that well. And it's just like, hi. I don't know. That was just
Definitely awkward.
Definitely.
Yeah, and Kieran, by the way, listen, he's already got in the cab and paid the driver. I mean, this man is a gentleman.
I mean, he could have made her food, but
She got everything we want in life.
Maybe after like a little baggie with lunch or breakfast.
Gives her a banana, just like take it, leave.
Listen, we can't expect perfection, so.
Yeah, sure.
So she's like, thanks. And then, Kieran, again, to go back into his like antagonistic mode, you know, because he's uncomfortable with the intimacy they had for like 5 seconds, says, if I ever find out you've looked through my things while I was out, that's true. Know that I might have to kill you. So yeah, he's just joking. He doesn't mean it. But he feels the need to like go back to that strict, you know, commanding personality because he's uncomfortable with the closeness that they had for like, again, 5 seconds. He's trying to push that back. You know, it's like a push and pull, right? He wants it, but he feels uncomfortable with it because he hasn't had it in his life for
Touch
so long.
and go, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I also think just as someone went through my things without me knowing and behind my back, I would also be kind of pissed.
True. Especially since he's so closed off to begin with. He's just kind of like, the hell are you doing?
Maybe he
looking for my
doesn't
stuff?"
even think that she would snoop because she's already made it clear that she's not interested in his past. So I think maybe he was just jabbing. It's like, yeah,
True.
like you going through my shit, wouldn't that be funny? And it's just, like, Lauren's just there like, actually.
So have
maybe
you
it's kind
finished
of
that
like-
book yet?
Maybe it's even a way of like kind of wishing that she had gone through his stuff, that she expressed enough interest in him to do so.
Mm.
But then he follows up with, go put on some decent clothes before you go to work. You might get the wrong idea about your job. Lauren's like, what? She throws, I don't know what she throws, some random jar at his head.
He called her a hoe.
Damn. He really
Yeah.
said, you dressing like a hoe.
You gave her that outfit, Kieran.
True.
It's your shirt.
It's
I mean,
your
you know that
stuff.
he's like, you know, he's got the shirts with the drawstrings. So
If she's
You didn't
dressed
give her that one though.
no, but all I will say is just like, if she's dressing like a hoe in the clothes you gave her, sir, I think we need to have a talk about who's the hoe here.
I love this so much. And then she just slams the door of the bathroom, presumably, where she's gonna go get dressed. Anyway, and then we see, you know, there's a bit of a blank space, so passage of time, and we focus on the window, and we see her come out, and she's fully dressed. She says, thank you for everything, I'll be leaving now. And she pulls down her hat. And then we see her, Kieran turns around, and he's like, it's not your usual uniform. Looks like he's doing something in the kitchen. And then we see Lauren, and she is indeed wearing a different uniform, and she looks very serious and beautiful also. And she's wearing like a more formal uniform.
the dress uniform.
Yeah. I love the low bun on her. It looks very nice. Very elegant.
Inspired by Lauren, like Kieran, right? He's the lone bud guy.
Oh yeah.
Spends one night in his house and already adopting his fashion.
Well, I don't know. We see Lauren wear low buns a lot later on in the series, but this fit
Later
is
on, yeah.
such an underrated outfit. I know it's because it's overshadowed by what she's actually going to, but it's like, I mean, she's showing up in style.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And she tells him, you know, she looks down, right? And her eyes are obscured by the hat. And she says, it's Harvey's funeral today. And yeah, that's the end.
That is cool. Be unfortunate.
So it's a
And
somber
that
moment.
kind of ends the hijinks night arc.
Indeed.
Iconic, legendary, amazing.
Oof.
What more can we say?
It was the best.
I love
Mhm.
the author's note. If you read the first part of the episode without dialogue, it looks like Lauren is in an escape room with no pants. Not wrong.
True. I can't imagine what she's feeling right now, where it's just like, after everything she found out the night before, she now has to go to this man's funeral. That's gotta be awkward.
So guys, we are going to have to end this episode. This was a really, really good episode. I enjoyed this so much, as I knew I would, because it's a great episode and I love doing it with you guys.
Yes. Thank you for having us again.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, and we finally did it. Woohoo! I'm so excited.
Yay! Third time's a charm.
Yeah, now let's hope nothing happens to this file, which has never happened before, but like, you know,
It gets
I'm nervous.
corrected.
I'm
We
nervous.
have to re-record.
As my
Right?
status on Discord says, heed it to Jesus.
Eh.
Oof.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Okay,
Thank
good
you
night.
too. Good night.